Asexual reproduction is going to be one type of reproduction, and this particular type of reproduction is characterized by the fact that it does produce clones. What we mean by clones is that these are identical copies, and when we're talking about a cell reproducing asexually, it is producing exact copies of itself. So the daughter cells that we get from the cell division are going to be identical to each other, and they're also going to be identical to that original parent cell that they came from. So with asexual reproduction, the general process is going to be to copy all of the genetic information inside the cell and then distribute those two exact copies into the two new cells that will ultimately be produced when the cell splits. Now, when we're talking about eukaryotes and prokaryotes, the process that they use to produce clones is going to be a little bit different. So this is primarily because of the fact that they have different DNA structures inside of them. So when we're talking about the chromosomes in eukaryotes, they have many linear chromosomes. And when we're talking about prokaryotes, they tend to just have a single large circular chromosome. When we look at eukaryotes, our eukaryotic organisms would be anything that is plant, animal, fungi, protist. Those are different examples of eukaryotic cells. And if they are going to reproduce asexually, the process that they're going to use for that is going to be mitosis combined with cytokinesis. And there are many steps involved in mitosis because there are so many copies or so many different chromosomes that are there inside the cell. They have to make sure that they do specifically copy each one and they carefully distribute each one of those copies into the new cells that are produced at the end. This mitosis and cytokinesis, it tends to be used to produce new structures when we're replacing tissues. In some cases, it is actually used to produce new organisms. This is not so common in animals, but we do have some animals that do this, certain worms, earthworms. We can have starfish that do reproduce asexually, and they would be using mitosis and cytokinesis. It is also something that is extremely common when plants are reproducing. Anytime we take a cutting or if we're dividing bulbs or something along those lines, it is going to be asexual reproduction with mitosis and cytokinesis. On the prokaryotic side of this, they can reproduce asexually as well, and for them, this is going to be through the process of binary fission. Binary fission is going to be a simpler process because there is not as much DNA that has to be copied and then carefully distributed. Typically, again, we're talking about a single large chromosome in prokaryotes, so there would really be just a need to copy that one chromosome and then split the cell, pulling one copy of that into each one of those cells that we are ultimately producing at the end. So bacteria typically are going to reproduce using binary fission. Now, the timeline for this process, if we're talking about these two for eukaryotes, this is about a 24-hour cycle. So in 24 hours, we could take a parent cell and we could split that into two daughter cells. Okay, and when we split that parent cell, the parent cell does go away. If we're talking about prokaryotes, this binary fission process, this is much faster. So this is in about 20 minutes. So in 20 minutes, we can take one cell, copy the DNA, and then distribute that into two daughter cells at the end. So much faster process of reproducing asexually when we are talking about prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. When we are talking about asexual reproduction, there are some advantages to reproducing this way. And one of the primary advantages that we do note is the fact that it is going to be a faster process than the sexual reproduction process. With sexual reproduction, it is going to require that we have two individuals in order for that to take place. In this case, we only need one parent. And so there is not going to be this need to find a mate, and there's not going to be really a need for the overall fertilization process as well. So that is going to speed things up. The fact that there are identical copies there can be advantageous as well if we do have an individual that is thought to be superior in some way.